Okay. Hi, hey, hello. Welcome back to Kristen's Kitchen. We are going to talk about today what I consume on basically a daily basis to consume an adequate amount of protein each day. My protein targets right now are 150 grams. So consuming that amount of protein on a consistent basis does require a lot of planning, but it also requires experience. I typically tend to consume very similar meals on a day-to-day basis, which allows me to consume an adequate amount of protein. So we're gonna go over some of the items that I consume on a day-to-day basis, and then I'm gonna show you guys what I do to track it in my phone, just so you can actually see the numbers, see the breakdown of how I'm consuming an adequate amount of protein each day. Before we get into it though, let's just take a moment here to talk about why protein is so important. I do think that a lot of people tend to think that consuming protein is meant for bodybuilders, and unless you are competing in the sport of bodybuilding, you don't need to be consuming a heck of a lot of protein. This is a huge misconception. As a coach, I've been doing this for 10 years now, and getting people to consume enough protein is easily the most challenging part of my job. In addition to that, consuming enough protein is people's secret weapon to achieving their body composition related goals. Reason being, protein has a higher thermic effect of food. We've talked about this in previous videos, where the breakdown of how your body burns calories throughout the day. And having a higher protein diet, your body actually has to work harder in order to break down protein. Therefore, when your body's having to work harder during the digestion process, your body is burning more calories in comparison to you consuming fats and carbohydrates. So the higher thermic effect of food that protein has works in your favor when you're trying to burn calories, if your goals, of course, are fat loss. Another reason why protein is so important is because it allows you to build an adequate amount of muscle, ensuring that you are on an adequate training program, a very structured resistance training program where the focus is on getting stronger over time, achieving progressive overload. You do want to ensure that you're consuming enough protein so you're putting more muscle on your frame. Why do we want more muscle? Again, people go back to that thought process thinking, well, I'm not a bodybuilder. I don't want to look like a bodybuilder. Therefore, I don't need to focus on building muscle. Building more muscle now is going to prepare you for a better quality of life when you get older. It's going to contribute to longevity. It allows you to have stronger bones, which is going to reduce the risk of developing osteoporosis. You're going to have more stability, reducing your risk of falling, developing fractures. My goal is to get off the toilet when I'm 90 years old without having to have like one of those elevated toilet seats. Having strong bones, which is accomplished by having more muscle, is going to allow you to do that. I know that's hard for people to think because they don't really, envision their life when they're 90 years old, but I really encourage you to think about the implications of your choices now for when you get older. Hopefully we all live a long, healthy life, and our choices now matter when it comes to our longevity. But as well too, the more muscle that you have on your frame, it works in your favor when it comes to calorie expenditure. Muscle is actually more calorie expensive in comparison to fat, meaning your body has to work harder in order for you to maintain the muscle that you have built. So that works in your favor because, again, you're increasing your calorie expenditure, burning more calories without having to do a whole heck of a lot. Yeah, right now, if you don't have a whole heck of a lot of muscle, you have to work harder in order to build it, but it is a great investment worth making because it's going to allow you to eat more food. It's going to allow you to have a quicker metabolism. So that way you're burning more calories without having to work harder and be a slave to the treadmill in order for you to just maintain your fat loss results. Building muscle is your secret weapon here, guys. So I know that protein is not super palatable. It's not as enjoyable as Doritos. I'm not sponsored by this, but if you guys haven't tried the collisions yet, holy cow, they're delicious. So protein, obviously not as palatable as a bag of chips, right? But Again, it is your secret weapon, so we have to make an adequate effort to plan ahead in order for us to consume enough protein. And that means filling up your kitchen with high protein foods. So these are my go-tos. Obviously, first and foremost, it's a protein supplement. You know, we always want to ensure that we are consuming enough protein from our actual whole foods. But if you already struggle with that, do yourself a favor and go get a protein supplement. I'm currently consuming the Limitless Pharma Whey Isolate. The vanilla flavor is delicious. It's my go-to. I'm pretty basic, but there's also very amazing flavors out there that you can stock your cupboards up with if you prefer some flavor. But we've talked about this in my previous nutrition video, where you want to put things into 1 gram increments versus relying on 1 scoop. So get yourself a solid protein powder that you enjoy, that tastes pretty decent, so that way it's nice and palatable, easy for you to consume enough of. First and foremost, protein powder. The rest of the items here are animal-based proteins. I do have a previous video talking about vegan protein sources, so if you're vegetarian or vegan, I'll link the video down below. You can go check that out. But I'm not a vegetarian anymore, and I rely on a lot of animal-based protein sources. So the next staple is gonna be chicken breast. So I get some frozen chicken breast fillets from Costco, the Kirkland signature. The reason I like these ones is because they're pretty tiny, pretty small. I typically rely on like maybe 2 fillets a day, which amounts to around 20 grams of protein, if memory serves me correctly. So I throw these in the air fryer, 2 fillets, it takes about 12 minutes. Super quick, super convenient and easy. Bada bing, bada boom. So chicken breast is my next go-to staple. After that, I love Greek yogurt. You do want to find options that are higher in protein. So most brands do have a high protein option. I get the Oikos Greek yogurt. All the flavors are pretty amazing. In a serving, 175 grams, it contains 17 grams of protein. So I typically have a serving of this maybe as a snack right before bed. I always try to have some protein about an hour or so before bed. Reason being, my metabolism's super fast, so I get hungry in the middle of the night. So having a serving of protein right before bed tends to help keep me feeling nice and full and satiated. Which brings me to another reason why protein is so important. You know, like what we talked about previously, right? Where it helps with building more muscle, it helps with your longevity as you get older. Another secret weapon that a lot of people don't realize is protein keeps you feeling full and satisfied. So if you're dieting and you're trying to lose weight, having an adequate amount of protein is gonna help you with that. And the reason is because protein takes longer to digest, so it's gonna be in your stomach a lot longer, leaving you feeling a lot more full in comparison to having a bag of Doritos. So again, protein is really helpful for people who are dieting. A lot of my clients, when they enter into a dieting phase, they don't feel hungry right away. If anything, they actually feel more full. They're like, oh, I'm eating a lot of food, which they aren't. They're in a diet, they're in a calorie deficit to promote fat loss, but they feel full because they're consuming more protein than what their body is used to. And that's a good thing, because I don't know if anybody has been in that phase before when you're dieting and you just feel so famished where you want to binge on everything. It's not sustainable if you have a lot of fat to lose and if you have to be in a calorie deficit for a significant period of time. Trying to mitigate that hunger by having a high protein diet, again, your secret weapon there. So high protein Greek yogurt, that's another staple. Next, I rely on protein milk. I'm not the biggest fan of Fairlife. I know that a lot of people aren't as well, but there are other high protein milks out there. Joya being another one. There is a third one. I can't remember the name of it at the top of my head, but like 1 cup of milk has 14 grams of protein. I'm pretty sure like just regular 2% milk, it's around like 5 to 8 grams of protein. Don't quote me on it, but it's a lot lower in comparison to protein milk. So I like cereal first thing in the morning. That's my pre-workout go-to. So pairing, you know, a high fiber cereal with protein milk, it's a pretty high protein meal first thing in the morning. So even if I'm ever in a jam and I'm short like 15 grams of protein, I'll have some Greek yogurt or I'll have some Fairlife milk. and that gets the job done. The next staple is extra lean ground beef. I typically will make this like in some lasagna, maybe some tacos or some pasta, but always trying to have extra lean ground beef in my diet. The reason why I'm not a vegetarian anymore is because my iron got very, very low, very concerningly low because of the lack of animal-based proteins, in particular red meats in my diet. I couldn't keep up my iron intake by supplementing and some of the other go-to protein sources, so I had to introduce red meat back into my diet. So I try to have extra lean ground beef like every other day. So it's a big staple, and it's pretty high in protein, a little bit higher in fats as well, but 100 grams is 7 grams of fat and 20 grams of protein. So pretty high protein source, and obviously you can be very creative with ground beef. You know, with it being summer right around the corner, you can go make burgers. It doesn't have to just be in lasagna or tacos. You know, you can incorporate so many recipes with some ground beef. Now the last one is eggs. Eggs and or egg whites, just depending on how my day is looking. But eggs have a decent amount of protein in them. They're also very healthy fats as well too. One egg, I think it's like 5 grams of protein, if memory serves me correctly. 6 grams of protein. Look at that. Egg whites are another great option if maybe you don't have that high of fats. Egg whites are a great option with that. I think 100 grams of egg whites, it's 10 grams of protein. So those are my go-to options. I'm gonna put the perishable items away, and then we're gonna track how a typical day looks like for me. I'm just gonna track what I typically eat in a day, and hopefully that will put things into perspective for you. And the biggest thing that allows me to consume enough protein each day, there are 3 things that I do. Number 1, I try to keep things as similar as possible. So what I ate yesterday is what I'm gonna eat today, with the exception that dinner likely will be different, but it helps take the guesswork out of it, because when we're tracking our food and we're trying to hit specific targets, having things as similar as possible helps take the guesswork out of it. Because if you're just tracking as you go throughout the day and you aren't aware of high protein snacks and meals, it's very tough and challenging to actually hit your targets. Often you're left scrambling at the end of the day, where maybe you have like 80 grams of protein at 7 o'clock at night. Should you be consuming 80 grams of protein at 7 o'clock at night? You know, hitting your targets is important, but your stomach may suggest otherwise. You know, it's not that it's bad to have that much in one sitting, but again, protein takes a long time to digest. It's very slow. Therefore, you may see some digestive related issues. So it's not going to be all that pleasant, especially when you want a good quality sleep. So planning ahead by having things very similar on a day-to-day basis makes a huge, huge difference. So that's what I do. That's number 1. The second thing that I do is ensure that with each meal, I'm having a serving of protein. So what is a serving of protein? Roughly around 20 to 30 grams. So for me, I know that I eat, you know, around 4 to 5 times a day. I try to ensure that I'm getting a serving with each meal that I'm consuming. And this allows me to ensure that I'm actually having meals versus snacking mindlessly throughout the day. So really just ensuring that with each meal, you're getting an adequate amount of protein. That's another strategy that helps hold me accountable. And the third thing is I weigh out all of my food. I ensure, and I'll show you here shortly, that everything is in grams versus cups versus scoops of protein powder. So that way I can play the game of Tetris more intelligently. You know, if we know that we have like 10 grams of protein left and we need more protein powder in order to hit that target, how can you actually accomplish that? How can you ensure that you're accomplishing that if you're relying on cups or scoops, for example? By putting things into 1 gram increments, it makes it a whole heck of a lot easier, because you are not required to consume what is on the back of the label. Those are just suggested serving sizes. You are more than welcome to have more or less than the suggested serving size on the back of a food label. Okay, so let me hit screen record here. So this is how the start of my day looks like. I haven't tracked anything yet for the day. 60 grams of fat, 330 carbs, and 150 protein. I'm not worried about showing you guys how I hit my fats and my carbs. I'm concerned with protein today. So what I typically do is I go back to yesterday and I copy most of my meals, because they're very similar, right? Like I said, I'm gonna keep things very consistent on a day-to-day basis. So if we go back to yesterday, you can see my pre-workout meal. I typically have a serving, not a serving, more than a serving, 105 grams of cereal and some Fairlife milk. So we're gonna copy that over. So if I slide over, we hit copy, pre-workout meal, and the serving sizes for this morning were the same. We're gonna hit save, and then we'll hit over to today. So you can see that my first meal included a serving of protein, right? 34 grams of protein. So we're gonna go back to yesterday, and now we're gonna copy over my post-workout meal. So with my post-workout meal, I'll just scroll down here so you can see it. It's typically 2 meals. Sometimes I'll have it all at once, and sometimes I'll split it up. So it's a fruit smoothie and a bagel with cheese and eggs, okay? So you can see here that for item number 1, I have just some frozen fruit. I have another serving of Fairlife milk. I have a scoop of the protein powder, a banana, and that's the fruit smoothie. The last 3 ingredients here is the egg bagel sandwich that I have. So I have a slice of cheese, 1 egg, and 1 bagel. So we're gonna go up to the top. We're gonna copy all of that over. Technically, this is, 2 meals where I split it up depending on how I am feeling. But if we scroll down, you can see that it is 61 grams of protein. So if that's split up into 2 meals, so that's gonna compute to about 30 grams of protein. But let's go to the protein powder so I can give you an example of what I do here. I weigh out my protein powder. So you can see here that 1 scoop is 31 grams. When I weigh it out on the scale, it doesn't always come out to 31 grams, and I'm not gonna try to perfect it where I'm always nailing 31 grams. Sometimes it'll be 29 grams, sometimes it'll be 33 grams. When I notice that there's a difference there, I will change this to whatever I weighed out for myself. So maybe it was 33 grams today. As you can see, that will increase my protein ever so slightly because when I enter it into my phone, it's in 1 gram increments, as you can see there. So I just change it based off of what I weigh out for myself. Way easier than sticking to the suggested serving size on the back. So those are the 2 meals, 2 to 3 meals that I track, that I pre-plan in advance. The rest of the day is going to be my lunch and my dinner, which is pretty similar. So for lunch today, I am going to have some chicken breast, some rice, and some veggies. Maybe some potatoes instead of rice, we'll see. So let's just worry about the protein here. So if we find the chicken fillets, okay. So I haven't weighed it out yet, so I'm still gonna pre-plan in advance, but typically it's gonna be around 100 grams. So that's what the chicken fillets are. So when I actually weigh it out, maybe it's 105 grams, maybe it's 110 grams. You can change it in there easily. And look at that, another serving of protein, 20 to 30 grams of protein, right? So we're gonna track that, and I'll quickly put in some potatoes. Have 100 grams of that, and then we'll quickly put in my veggies. Stir-fry blend, which is typically 85 grams. Okay, so that is how my lunch is gonna look. So now I have quite a bit left over for maybe a snack and dinner later. 28 grams of protein and 145 grams of carbs, 41 grams of fat. Like I said, I'm not too concerned with that. So I'm thinking later as a snack, I will probably have some Greek yogurt. So let's find that. Greek yogurt, I'm gonna have a serving, which is 175 grams, and that will be my snack. I'm not quite sure what I'm gonna have for dinner yet, but let's pretend that I've already tracked my dinner. This is say how my day looks. Ignore the carbs, ignore the fats. I want you to look at the protein. I have 11 grams of protein left over. Is that worth, me continuing to track? Yeah, you know what, maybe. Depending on the person, depending on your goals, we wanna try to increase our accuracy here. So if I know that I have 11 grams of protein left over and I'm pre-planning my day out like this, well, maybe I want more Greek yogurt. I don't have to have 175 grams. I can have more if I feel like it. So if we play with that, how much more would I have to have? Maybe 210 grams? 250. Let's save it. And then, oh, look at that. We only have 4 grams of protein left over. So that right there makes it so much easier to actually hit your protein targets when you take the time to actually put things into 1 gram increments. Look, I just quickly made a change in my already go-to source to be able to actually hit my protein targets in comparison to scrambling and wondering, oh my goodness, what can I have for 10 grams, right? Because I've already had what's the suggested serving size for the Greek yogurt. I have to pick something else. You can if you want, but it's easier to just, change the serving size of my already go-to options. So that right there is really helpful for me to ensure that I'm consuming enough protein. So that is how things typically look on a day-to-day basis. I really do hope that you guys found it helpful. Remember that protein, I know it's not enjoyable, I know it's kind of blah, it's not overly palatable, I get it, but it's your secret weapon, especially if you've been spinning your wheels, not knowing how to accomplish your goals. You feel like your body's not changing. You're always hungry all the time. Protein, if you consume enough of it, it's going to make a huge difference with you being able to accomplish your goals.